Season 1 of X-Men 97 has come to a close, so today I'm going to share my thoughts on the whole season. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about X-Men 97? Give me that context. Did you grow up watching the original X-Men series? Did you watch it more recently? Or did you watch X-Men 97 without any context of the original animated series? As for me, I was in the 5th grade when X-Men the animated series came out, and so I was obsessed with it. My friends were obsessed with it, and most of my knowledge of the X-Men came from my obsession that came with X-Men the animated series. I had the toys, I had the trading cards, all of that fun stuff. So when they said they were going to do another season, I was like, you are legitimately bringing my childhood back in the 2020s. This is awesome. And my wife grew up watching it too. So this for us was like very much a nostalgia show for us. But what do we think about it? Let's get started. And like most people, I thought that this was a fantastic continuation of X-Men the animated series, as well as just an example of what you can do with an animated comic book series. It pulls extensively from the comic book lore. It is pulling the whole Marvel universe together. It's telling very dense, sometimes very dark stories, while still having action, still having comedy. And so it's a show that is just has a whole lot to it, and there's a lot to latch onto. And with all of that, it's also very comic booky. It doesn't shy away or water down the weirder or intergalactic aspects or even the horror aspects of the X-Men. It leans into all of it, and so you just feel like you're getting pure, unfiltered comic booky stuff. And there's something very refreshing about that. In particular, when it comes to the Disney era of Marvel, I built this YouTube channel covering Phase 3 of the MCU. I am well on record loving almost all of Phase 3 of the MCU. I literally owe this career to Phase 3 of the MCU. But the reason that Phase 3 of the MCU was able to be just so wildly successful is because it took these comic book characters and it found a way to package them for the broadest possible audience. So you had these blockbusters that were funny, had big spectacle, likable characters, relatable character arcs, and it was very consumable for all ages, young to grown-ups, everything in between, boys, girls, all of it. But when you do that, you have to kind of cut off some of the rougher edges, you have to trim away some of the weird, and you have to fit it into a bit of a formula. They had a great formula. I am not even complaining about the formula, but watching something like X-Men 97 reminds you of just kind of how weird, wild, dense, how thematically rich the source material, the comics actually are. And there's a whole lot to unpack there, but like right off the bat, you get to episode 3, and it is straight up a horror episode. Haunted house episode with possession, demon creatures all popping up, and that sort of thing pops up all throughout the season because of Mr. Sinister. And so you have creepy images side by side with mainstream sci-fi comic booky action. And then also at the same time, X-Men has always been rich in social commentary, and you get a ton of that here as it's very much continuing the messaging that has been going on with X-Men for decades now that was in the original animated series. And then there's just enough to make it relevant to today, but doing it in a way that's not preachy. It is using stories. It is using this fantastic scenario to give us a new perspective on the world that we live in, the way that allegorical storytelling is supposed to. And some of what makes this so wild to me is that this is a series, the original version of it, that was aimed at 5th grade me. And you stop to think that there was a point in time where the entertainment designed for Fox Kids was rich with social commentary, all sorts of pulling genres together, and didn't think that we were dumb. Didn't think that you had to make everything a straight up comedy for children to engage with it. And here we are all these decades later, and it just feels so detached from what we expect even adults in a broad perspective to be able to consume, let alone what we design for fifth graders. And there's just got one of those things that just stuck in my mind because it's so true to what came before, and it's so heavy. It's so dense at times. It's pretty wild. To the heaviness of it, it's a show that has huge stakes, and it continues to play them out. Where if you're going to say there's a war, wars have casualties. If you want to create a scenario where the audience as well as the characters in the show are torn between two extreme positions, or not two opposite positions after an extreme scenario, you have to do something that would generate a polarizing reaction, and this show's not afraid to do that, where there's episodes with thousands of casualties, even of characters that we love. It's not afraid to do that, to have consequences, and even pulling whether the death of lead characters or even horrifying things happen to lead characters. I mean, one of the most shocking images from the comics that I remember from 25 years ago is this graphic of Magneto pulling the metal off of Wolverine's bones. Like, that image sticks with you, and they put that in here. And you just watch it and you go, whoa, it's not even really that graphic. But you know what they're doing, and your brain fills in the gaps. And it just makes you feel how serious what you're watching is. And there have been MCU films that have had very large stakes and a few kind of horrifying things happen. I don't think we've ever had anything that was just like so consistently kept going back to reminding us the stakes are real. There's a reason Magneto thinks the way that he does and why people would follow him. And there's a reason why there's people that are pulled in the opposite direction, and they see the way that Magneto is, raising the temperature. Like, you feel that. It's earned conflict where you have a scenario, there's not an easy answer. You can see how and why Magneto believes he's in the right. He knows he's doing radical extreme things, but he can believe what he's doing is right because there's all sorts of evidence in the real world that he is right. And characters in the show that are not on his side acknowledge that he is right. And that's cool to see when you have a show that's able to raise the stakes at such a high level as well as a personal level, thematic level, all of them at the same time. Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you don't know my story, when I started this YouTube channel, I was unemployed and in an addiction rehab program. My previous career put a lot of stress on me. I bottled it up, and then I turned to alcohol as my coping mechanism. And then my coping mechanism turned into an addiction. Therapy is a safe place to get things off your chest and go figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. If I'd gone to therapy sooner, I could have learned how to set boundaries and avoid so much of the stress that pushed me to alcohol. I could have learned better coping mechanisms so I wouldn't have needed alcohol, and I could have avoided so much pain for myself and for those around me. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Sean Chandler today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Sean Chandler. One of the good things about X-Men the Animated Series versus X-Men the movies is that X-Men the Animated Series is about the X-Men. It is very much an ensemble show, as opposed to being the Wolverine show. Wolverine is great. There's a reason Wolverine turned into the star of the movies, because he's a star character, and Hugh Jackman is obviously a great movie star. But it's not quite supposed to be that way. That's not supposed to be the balance here. And when you watch X-Men the Animated Series, you see this much more balanced version of it. You get to see Scott Summers, Cyclops, as the leader, as the strategist. He's got emotions, he's flawed, he's in the season got this crazy scenario going on with who's his wife and who did have a kid with. Like, there's crazy things going on, but you get to see him in the lead. And each of the characters with their power set, with their personality, is important to it. And Wolverine can still be your favorite. He has a whole part to play in this, but he doesn't dominate. He just gets a strong moment every episode. Something matters. He always gets his quip, his little line in there, but it's not about him. It's not putting the camera on him, following him around the whole time, the way that the movies did. Too much if you want to make an X-Men movie. So all in all, I was very pleased with it. It felt true to what I watched as a child, while also being able to pull in some more things because of its its current ownership. And so you can have this populated, lived in Marvel universe and just have cut to a government board meeting, Captain America standing there, cut to New York City burning and Daredevil's right there. And you can do that and it feels earned. And I think maybe some of those there's a little bit too much. Hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know who that is. Maybe a little bit too much of that. But they also didn't rely on cameos or it being a populated universe to carry the show. They were just like little legitimate cameos. Actual cut to it. Hey, that's Doctor Strange. Fun little cameos rather than anything that, relying on the member berries to carry the show. It's not that at all. It's just a little fun little bits for the fans. I'd say on the negative side, it would lean back to some of the things I said as positives and some of the ways that the show has always been, but it is very dense. So you'll just cut to an episode and we are in space with Charles Xavier and you're like, what's going on here? What happened? Did I miss it? What? There's like a whole backstory of all sorts of things that explained by story arcs of past, and it just drops you into the middle of all of it and expects you to just kind of go along with it. And that's what the original run was like. You're just in the middle of this very big world where everything has a backstory, and it just throws it up there, and it'll pause to have someone just drop exposition and explain the things you need to know, like in ways that humans don't actually talk, like, well, I know that my X-Men need me back home, but here in space, like, they pause to just say the exact scenario that they're in so that we can move along with the plot. You know, it is what it is. It very much is rushing through kind of plot points in a certain sense because it's pulling so many things into a single season, and you're telling a story that if you did in a movie, it would be a 3-hour movie or 2 movies, and they're doing it in 90 minutes. And so it's just kind of very much flies through a lot of story in a number of the episodes here. And, some of that, like I said, is a positive that it's very comic booky. There's also some things in the comic books that there's a reason that they never try to adapt them into the movies because they are very weird, inaccessible, or just not great ideas. And they've generally tried to pick the best ideas or the one most translatable. And both the appeal as well as sometimes the awkwardness of here is it just goes for it with some wild stuff. And that might put a smile on your face, or it might make you go, video games? That's a bit off. That's kind of weird to me. So anyway, very good show. An example that when you have a clear vision for what you're trying to do, and having a previous series gives you a clear vision for what you're trying to do, Marvel Studios can still deliver really awesome stuff. And you can create a Marvel show that is thrilling, exciting, comic booky, thematically dense, has a lot of characters that all get explored. You can do all of that. And here's the example of how. Just look at it. Marvel Studios, big win here. Learn and do something amazing with it. Also ends on a great cliffhanger that I'm very excited to see where they're going to go with all of it. Remember to join me down below in the comment section, share your thoughts on the show, check out my X-Men movie ranking right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.